Hey, welcome to Hooper's Radar. Today I'm with Late to Hoops, and we're going to be discussing a bunch of things about the All Star game, including the All Star stars, which were recently announced, our personal snubs, who we think got snubbed, and just what we think about the jerseys and the new format that they're going to be drafting before the All Star game goes live. So, yeah, with that said, let's get into it. So, this year has to be one of the most competitive years to be an All Star. The talent in the NBA is at its biggest peak ever, and at this point, snubs and people not making it are bound to happen. Only the elite of the elite can make it these days, and that's what we're here to discuss. So we'll begin with the West, and the starters that were selected are Stephen Curry, Zion Williamson, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic, and the captain LeBron James. For the West, the NBA sure got most of it correctly, with Nikola Jokic being the favorite for MVP and having another elite season with barely missing games. Luka, who is basically averaging a 30-point triple-double and is also in the MVP race, carrying the Mavericks to the playoffs. LeBron is always going to be the captain for the West because he continues to be elite even at the age 38, and there's just no other player in the West who has the presence and knowability of LeBron James to take his captain spot. I'm convinced he'll be the captain until he retires. I know there's been a little bit of questionable argument for Curry and Zion because they've missed time, but remember how amazing these guys were playing before their injuries. If the Warriors were a higher seed, Curry would be an MVP candidate right now, and Zion was leading the Pelicans to the 1 seed prior to his injury. Curry has also recently came back and has been playing great. Zion, on the other hand, has yet to make a return, but I understand why he made it because he's just so dominant and unguardable on an elite team. The NBA is never going to get the list fully right because I know that for most of you, the guy that least belongs on this list is Zion because he's missed time, and there are guys that have arguably been better. For my snubs, I say Domantas Sabonis sure deserved to be a starter. Just like Jokic, he's the main focal point of his team's offense and is a center that can do it all. The Kings have been rising in the standings and look like a playoff team. And he's been having an amazing season, and although he didn't make it as a starter, he will definitely be a reserve. My next snub is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's been incredible since the season has started and has kept his 30-point average completely through. If you take him off this Thunder team, who are still incredibly talented, don't get me wrong, they aren't a playoff team or a playing caliber team. The leap that Shai has taken offensively and defensively this year is unheard of, and although this team isn't a high seed team, he should be rewarded for how great he's been this season, and that's why I think he got snubbed. My last snub is Anthony Davis. Yes, I know he's injured, and he's always injured. The narrative is he's elite when he's healthy. That's the reality though. We saw earlier this season that Anthony Davis can still be a top 10 player in the NBA and lead the Lakers to the playoffs. He had a stretch of multiple 30-point double-doubles and was leading the Lakers to wins. I think if he would have stayed a bit healthy, he could have been a starter. But it's too competitive these days to be getting injured because there are so many other players that are also elite to take your spot. I'm sure Davis will be a reserve though. I'd love to think that Damian Lillard is a snub, but the Blazers have been falling in the standings. Lillard was getting injured earlier in the season and having inconsistent performances. He's been on fire lately with a 60-point game, but his recent resurgence is not enough to make him a starter. With that all said, what are your thoughts and snubs for this year's All-Stars Late to Hoops?
So the first thing that I guess I'm not really a big fan of when it comes to the West side is that I understand LeBron James is, kind of the face of the NBA, and he's been the face of the league for a long time, and that the Los Angeles Lakers are one of the biggest market teams in the league and one of the most marketable. When it comes to All-Star Weekend, that's all you're trying to do is make money and put butts in seats. But I feel like, guys, he's about to possibly win his third MVP in a row, his third consecutive MVP, that it's time for Jokic to be the captain of this team. I mean, dude's averaging about a 25-point triple-double as a 7-footer and the third heaviest player in the NBA. Secondly, Curry and Zion have missed a notable amount of time. If we were going to talk about strictly healthy starters, I would slot Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Sabonis, like you said, into these lineups. And if we're talking about people that are injured, I don't know if I would say Anthony Davis beats out Zion, but I think Sabonis as a whole beats out both of these players. Like, the Kings are the second best offense in the NBA, and Sabonis is kind of like the Jokic of the Kings. I mean, he's averaging 7.5 assists, and if I remember correctly, 18 points and like 11 rebounds. As far as it goes for Luka Doncic being a starter, I guess I don't see any issues with that because his stats have been really, really good this year. And when you're playing in the All-Star game, the same reason they're starting Luka is the same reason that they're starting Curry. I mean, people tend to forget what Steph Curry did last year in the All-Star game. it's just a lot of fun to watch these kind of generational talents brawl out. And at the end of the day, if you're a fan and your favorite player is a starter, the best advice I'd give for you is that in 20 years on Bleacher Report, Basketball Reference, it's not going to say he was a X amount of All-Star starter and a Y amount of All-Star bench player. It's just going to say that he was a Z All-Star, like that amount. So I wouldn't worry too hard about it, but those are kind of my complaints for the Western Conference All-Stars. And now that we've kind of went over the Western Conference All-Star starters, let's talk about the East. What are your thoughts on the starters that have been revealed, Hooper's Radar?
To discuss the East, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, and Captain Giannis were chosen as the starters. I think this list is very good and is more accurate than the West. Kevin Durant has been having an MVP year and leading the Nets to a top seed before his unfortunate injury. Kyrie Irving has also been a big part of the Nets' success this year and has been playing most of his games. I know some of y'all will argue that Jaylen Brown should have had his spot, but we'll get to that in a bit. Donovan Mitchell has been the guy that the Cavaliers have needed to take the next step as a team, and Donovan has been an MVP candidate at times with amazing performances like his 70-piece. Jason Tatum has been the best player on the best basketball team in the NBA and one seed in the East. There is no denying Tatum has improved a lot this year and is playing more winning and system basketball than ever, meanwhile still putting up his superstar numbers. The captain spot was up in the air for a bit with Kevin Durant having more votes than Giannis, but it seems like Kevin's injury made the vote race go in Giannis' direction, and now he's the captain. Either one of them could have really been the captain, so that's fine. Every guy that was chosen to be a starter for the East has a great reason to have been picked and team success in the standings. For my snubs, I have to start with Jaylen Brown. He's been arguably the best second option in the NBA alongside Jason Tatum, who has been a great complement to Tatum after many seasons of people questioning if they fit together. Just like Tatum, he's also taken another elite leap in his play as a ball handler, defender, and scorer. The biggest argument for his snub is that he's averaging similar numbers to Kyrie on a better team and has been more consistent throughout the season. But I'd say you could have gone with either player and still been fine. My next player is Tyrese Halliburton. We were talking about before injury because missing time obviously affects your all-star chances, but prior to injury, Tyrese had been taking one of the biggest leaps a player can take, leading the league in assists while averaging 20 points with the Pacers being in the playoff race. He was playing like a leader for the Pacers team and making them look like a formidable playoff team. My next snub is Joel Embiid, a top 2 center in the league who, although has issues being healthy at times, has been playing a good amount of games this season and is leading the league in scoring and is the main guy on the second-seeded Sixers in the East. Joel isn't always in the lineup and takes some load management days, but whenever he plays, it's guaranteed that he's going to give you one hell of a performance, as it's been shown all season that he goes wherever he wants and scores at a high rate. The East starters were very competitive this year, but I'm sure we can all agree Embiid is a top 5 player in the East and a top 10 player in the NBA right now. I would like to say that James Harden is also a snub because he's been a part of the Sixers who have been winning almost every game lately, but he missed some time earlier this season, and unlike every other starter, plays passive at times and can't take over the game the same way he used to. He's still an elite playmaker and 20-point per game scorer though, but I'm sure he'll be a reserve. Those are my thoughts on the East. Late to Hoops, let me know yours.
So for the Eastern Conference starters, I feel like they did a pretty good job. The one thing, the biggest issue looking at this, though, in my opinion, is that next year, if not this year, they just need to cut all the crap and make it positionless. There's no reason the runner-up for the last 3 years, including this year in MVP voting, Joel Embiid, shouldn't be an all-star starter. I don't care if you have 5 centers that are all good enough to be starters. That's how it should be. It's just the way of basketball. Like Joel Embiid's averaging 33 points this year, which is somehow up from his 31 points he's averaged last year. There's no excuse for this. I feel like Kyrie definitely deserves a spot. Kevin definitely deserves a spot. Giannis does, and Tatum does. But I would definitely take out Kyrie or Mitchell if that meant we're having Embiid in the game, as well as, like you said, Jaylen Brown. I could see him slotting in for Mitchell just because Mitchell's had been dealing with that groin injury, and the Celtics are obviously the best team in the East. As far as the rest of this lineup goes, I just have to give my flowers to Kevin Durant. Shout out to him and the entire Brooklyn Nets franchise. I think it's beyond impressive that Kevin had an injury like an Achilles tear, or actually it was a rupture, back in that series in 2019, and he's bounced back, and 3 years later he's still the same Slim Reaper we all know and love, and he's arguably having the best season of his career and putting up a really good MVP candidacy.
So obviously the NBA in recent years has been trying to make a couple of interesting changes to the NBA All-Star game every year. And one of the biggest changes this year is the fact that for the first time ever, the NBA All-Star draft will take place live before the game. So this is going to be interesting. We're not going to know the reserves right until before the game, and it might end up being like a little pickup game situation where, you point to a player and pick him up, or you just name the player. And it was funny because last year the whole Kevin Durant, James Harden situation happened, but it was over a call, so it wasn't as awkward. This could end up being a very awkward situation for players that have beef this year and just make the game a lot more fun, especially live on television, as they're all going to physically be in the same court while they pick up players. Late to Hoops, what do you think?
I definitely agree that it's going to be interesting kind of seeing the animosity in a live room because, I mean, LeBron was trying to hide his laughter over the clipboard last year when they were drafting on TNT. I just feel like it's going to be really interesting to see how the teams are created and kind of captivated in that setting, like you said. I really do want to see kind of how, because I feel like there's a little bit of tampering almost in years before. Like if you go back years ago to when Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant weren't even teammates yet, there's the clips of them in the locker room talking about how, oh, we're going to go to New York or we're going to go to Brooklyn or whatever in the tunnel. I mean, not the locker room, sorry. So it's kind of interesting to see, you don't get to decide who your teammates with until that exact moment. I definitely think this is a cool change, but I'm just really kind of excited to see how the teams come together all in all.
Yeah, the team selection is definitely going to be interesting. But one thing that won't change, unlike other years, like you said, tampering, is LeBron is probably going to have Stephen Curry for like his 10th year in a row because he always seems to
I
pick up Steph Curry.
Yeah, and I wonder how they're going to decide who gets the first pick in this situation. I don't know if they've announced that or not yet, or if they're going to wait until the moment comes. But whoever gets first pick is definitely probably going to be selecting Steph Curry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe flip a coin or something. But another thing I want to speak of about this year is, the jerseys change every year. What do you think about the jerseys this year? I think they're a little bit simple.
I think I would agree with you in the sentiment that the jerseys are simple. I think they do a pretty all right job captivating what Utah is, a simple state. I mean, the orange ones look exactly like the Utah Jazz jerseys we've seen in years before. Like I've seen Donovan Mitchell drop 40 points in those jerseys before. The blue ones are extremely like unadulteratedly simple. Like there's no getting around that. I think they'll get the job done, but at the end of the day, with the Jordan brand especially, I feel like they could have done a little more.
No, yeah, for sure. This is like simplicity. Yeah, it's fine. It's like they didn't try. But me and Late to Hoops were talking like earlier, and he was telling me how it's gonna look like Donovan Mitchell is back in Utah if he puts these on.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. It would be fun. I think it's the Western Conference that has those jerseys, so I feel like Utah fans would get a nice little kick out of seeing their former draft pick in those threads just one last time. But this brings nothing to like the '86 jerseys or the '92 jerseys. Like there was just so many great, iconic, old school, like the Charlotte ones when they played in Charlotte. Even a couple of years ago when they played in Cleveland, those ones were pretty cool. Like, and throughout the 2010s, like I don't know. I just this year it's definitely a little lackluster. Like me personally, you won't see me buying an All-Star jersey this year, and I hope none of you watching this video buy an All-Star jersey this year. Unless, I mean, if it's your favorite player and you're at the game, you can do whatever you want. But I don't know. It just couldn't be me, I guess.
Yeah, well, I hope you guys all enjoyed. Stay tuned for a video about the All-Star reserves when those come out on Late to Hoops channel, of course. And let me know what you guys think about this All-Star event and the changes that have happened, the jerseys and the starters in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And please make sure to like and subscribe and check out Late to Hoops' channel, link in the description, to stay on the radar for all things basketball.